All right. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everybody who is on the call today. Glad to see everybody here. Welcome to the May edition of the Cyber Threat Intelligence TC monthly meeting. We've got a relatively light agenda today. As we can go ahead and see, it says we'll do a couple quick TC updates and subcommittee updates, and then we are going to spend the bulk of our time today talking about cross-standardization within the ITU and the process. So many thanks to the folks on the listserv and to Chet Ensign from OASIS, who kind of gave us the kind of the process that we would need to go ahead and follow here. So jumping right into things, going into TC updates, unless Trey, you had anything you wanted to go ahead and say as a preamble before we started. Okay.
You got it.
All right. Well, again, just a quick reminder for everyone, we are still looking for some volunteers on some leadership roles. So co-secretary to help Kelly out, as well as a chair and or co-chair for taxi, especially as I actually saw some updates in the Slack channel around taxi just the last 24 hours or so around some things that look like we may have missed in terms of pagination and adding some terms and functions in there. So if there's anybody interested, let us know. We will have a more substantive update in the next session around kind of the futures piece to be able to go ahead and talk more around that. So we will jump over to STIX updates, which I believe are going to be relatively brief, but I will let Emily go ahead and speak to those.
All right, thanks, Rob. Yes, like you said, it's relatively brief. The STIX working group is still heads down reviewing the contributed best practices document. Everybody is welcome to review. It's open now so that anybody that can look at the CTI-TC cover page can review the document as well, or at least see it. So, join in, come look at it, place your comments, give us your best practices so they can be integrated. That's what we're focused on for now. Back to you, Rob.
That's fantastic. So please do go ahead and join in. I think that we've moved things around a little bit, and we're trying to go ahead and get everyone easy access to these Google Docs. So if you do click on the link that's in chat, and we will go ahead and make sure that that's prominent in the meeting notes that come out afterwards. If you don't have access, do go ahead and request and let us know. And because we know for a lot of folks on the call, a person like myself, like the email that you're registered with in OASIS is not necessarily the email address you can go ahead and use with Google Docs, and so therefore we do recognize that there's a gap there, but we think we've gotten a structure in place now where we can go ahead and basically give easy access to most everybody at this point without too much administrative hurdle. The other question I had quickly, and this could just be me, how are we on STIX errata and going through the issue list?
We have a skeleton document and we're starting to fill it in with errata. But we're not at the point, it hasn't been fully populated, and it definitely hasn't been discussed within the working group yet.
Okay, because I have a feeling that's going to come into play in the next section, in the next couple of sections that we talk about. So I just wanted to go ahead and put that bug in you and the committee's ear to be able to go ahead and go on that. But the best practices work is also equally important. Okay, we'll go on to Interop. I believe Marlon's on the call.
Yeah. So for Interop, we move forward based off of the past ballot from last month. So we submitted the taxi Interop document to be published as a CSD. We're still in the process for that. So keep an eye out as we look forward to that actually getting released, and you'll get the appropriate links so that you'll be able to reference that with the community and share within your communities of interest as well. So for right now, we're going through the process and we're looking for that process to be resolved so that we can go ahead and actually have that as a formal document that folks could reference. Next slide, please. We're going forward with the Plug Fest. Remember, the Plug Fest is going to be June 15th through the 17th. We are planning on having the participants who are right now Fujitsu, MITRE, and Peraton being able to do some initial testing of, just making sure that everything that they're able to connect with each other and do some preliminary stuff prior to the Plug Fest starting this month. And then, actually going to the actual Plug Fest in June. The Plug Fest is going to be virtual and in person, and that's going to be hosted and sponsored by Peraton in Washington, D.C. area, Arlington. Next slide. So just an update. So the Plug Fest is, we're going to have our next meeting for the Plug Fest next week. And we're still tracking on the STIX preferred website. We'll have some conversations about what we'll do on that front as we're moving forward. But right now we're focusing on the Plug Fest. Any questions for Interop? All right, back to you, Rob.
All right, thanks. Hearing none. Only point of clarification that I'll go ahead and add to what Marlon had said there is around the Interop documents, both STIX and Taxi. So we did go through the ballot process to go ahead and get those approved as CSDs as per OASIS guidelines because they do have normative statements in them. And they are absolutely available to all members. They are in the document area in Kavi, so you can easily find them. For the process that Marlon was talking about, is actually getting OASIS to go ahead and publish them alongside the published STIX and Taxi standards, so that they are very, very easy to find for external folks, external to the TC. So that way we have a public link that we can go ahead and point to everybody that's easy to go ahead and get to. So that's the big thing there. So that is more of an administrative item, but because as a TC we've already voted on to approve the document, so it's all good to go. But just wanted to go ahead and add that clarification for everyone's knowledge. Okay, so let's go ahead and get to the meat of today's session. So it was brought up last month around ITU. So Duncan, thank you for kicking all of us in the collective rear end to be able to go ahead and kind of and drive this forward. I do appreciate the gentle nudge, for lack of a better term, although some people might have said it was a little bit more forceful. That has actually triggered a lot of conversation on the listserv and in Slack around kind of general support for the concept. And we were able to go ahead and get Chet Ensign from OASIS to provide some kind of a high level guidance and explanation of the process that we would go to. And so I'll kind of go through this. Duncan, given that you are our liaison to the ITU study groups in that would be submitting to, feel free to go ahead and interject and add in color commentary and or real world guidance. Go ahead.
And I agree. I got ornery last week, but partly because it's been going on for a long time and everyone might not be aware of the history. Probably you're aware that STIX and Taxi started as US government work prior to the formation of OASIS. I was actually very involved in that work. And at the time, a decision was made, hey, this shouldn't just be a US government saying to do this, is something we need to have worldwide. What's the best way to do that? Everyone said it should be a standard. And there was a heated debate over which standards body it should go in. Okay, and the decision and the sort of two finalists were the ITU and OASIS, and OASIS won because A, it was sort of easier to work with, and B, it results in ITU standards anyway because we already had XAMCL and SAML and a whole bunch of other ones that are OASIS did the work, but they became ITU standards. So, in my opinion, it sort of had always been a desire of this to eventually become an ITU standard. And then we actually prepped that 5, 6, 7 years ago in the ITU and said, hey, you guys don't need to create your own separate standard on this stuff because we're already doing it. And they basically said, fine, give it to us. I think as long ago as 4 years ago, they started sending liaisons saying, hey, you guys said you do this, give it to us so we can make it a standard. And we basically kept ignoring them. And I am the OASIS liaison on this issue to the ITU. So I basically go to meetings and say, yeah, we'll get to it. Oh, wait, there's a legal holdup. We can't give it to you yet because it's not actually an OASIS standard yet. So we gave them an actual, as soon as it becomes a standard, we'll give it to you. Well, as you know, it did become a standard a year or so ago. They've had several meetings since. And in fact, at 7 hours ago at 4 a.m. our time, I was literally in the ITU meeting discussing this kind of stuff. They literally have given up on us. They started a new study period and it's actually not on their list anymore. And there are actual alternatives potentially being discussed. We really need to do this if we want it to happen. Back to you guys.
So thank you for the commentary. And, so we are going to rectify this. From a personal perspective, I am in full support of this process. So let me actually talk a little bit about process and where where we go. So as one might expect, there actually is official policy and guidelines on how to go ahead and do this from an OASIS perspective. Again, this link will be in the notes for you to go ahead and read through it. It's legalese and the like. So if you enjoy reading those kinds of things, or if you're looking for materials before you go to bed, that's cool too. But the reality is there's a process that we do need to follow and make sure that everything is above board. And as Duncan had said, kind of like the first hurdle to this is that STIX and TAXI needed to be full approved OASIS standards. And so we are now at that point. We hit that mark, June of last year. We've got the the ballots to prove it. They're all published. We've got our Interop guides now. We have all the documentation that we need. The next thing is that we need to be submitting to a cross-standardization body that is appropriate and actually is a proper global standards authority, although the global isn't necessary in the grand scheme of things from a process perspective, but it is for us because we want a cross-standardization to go ahead and broaden the reach of STIX and TAXI. ITU is such a group. And so I think it all starts kind of with emotion and internally. That's going to go ahead and show intent and authorization from us that we want to go through this process. We could start that here on the call today and do a show of hands. We'll repeat that call tonight to go ahead and get a good view of everybody.
May I make that motion, or are we too early?
I would say give me a chance to go through these two slides so everyone understands what the process is, and then we'll go through that process. So once we get past that, and that's a bit of formality that I'm adding into this based on my kind of reads of things, show that we are basically being very above board. We have that motion. We will prepare as a TC. We will prepare a submission request. OASIS will provide us that template. And as part of that process, we're going to need to define the plan for versioning and maintenance of the standards. It all stays within our control, but we do need to kind of document how we're going to go ahead and do things, how we're going to push out updates like, so it is very clear as to what we're going to go ahead and do. I believe, and I don't want to put Duncan in a position of nonsense, but I think you have some experience there, as well as we can get guidance from OASIS on how to go ahead and phrase this.
So in your email, sent to the email list like minutes before the meeting, and apologies because it's 2 emails because I made a mistake and had to the one that counts the attachment I forgot to attach, is a example. It doesn't have to be what we send, but it is draft text prepared based on other draft text that was successfully worked. It's actually the XAMCL standards from, I don't know, a year or 2 ago, just replaced XMECL with STIX or TAXI. And they even had 2 that they were submitting. So it's sort of nice that it was paired. But anyway, what is in your mocks is, should we make the motion and pass it, then that would serve as a potential basis of what to send. I believe it's filled out completely, with one minor exception at the end that we might want to wait for the interop next week, although we could use any of the bazillions of ones we've already had. But just so people know sort of what it is you're talking about, if you go look in your mail, you'll see there's basically a letter that goes out to all of OASIS members and says, hey, basically you guys on board with this, and attached to it is this form basically that you got to fill out from OASIS. And I have taken the liberty of writing the letter for them and filling out the form the way it has been filled out in the past. And you guys can look at it and see if you agree. It's pretty much pro forma. It pretty much says, hey, it's OASIS's job to do all this stuff. ITU follow whatever they do.
All right, cool. So that actually leads me into the next couple things. So once we've done that submission, OASIS is going to go ahead and open up a special majority ballot for us to go ahead and approve the submission. It goes to the OASIS president. As of right now, that's going to be chair of the board as Gershon Jansen, or the new executive director, whichever comes first. Because the OASIS director has stepped down, so this will most likely be going to Gershon. Upon the passage of that vote, OASIS opens up a 15-day staff review to make sure that everything is in line. Then that, as Duncan mentioned, there's that public call to OASIS, and that's where that email goes out, everything gets sent up. If everything is good there's no issues. The president has up to 15 days to approve and reject the submission, and then 15 days to submit to the ITU. And then at that point, the ITU process and approval process kicks in, and that's where I lose my visibility. But as a TC, that's our responsibility here.
And I can fill it a little bit on what happens then. It varies depending on what's going on. If you're starting from whole cloth, it's a whole different story. But for something like this, it gets proposed as a contribution. If it's something they've been asking for, which they have been, it's usually pretty much pro forma, and in as early as 6 months, but usually a year, it would be given an X series number. It'd become X dot, I don't know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever number gets picked. They then translate it into 7 languages. I forgot to mention one of the big advantages, which when you read the advantages in the attachment to letter sent, I don't mention this one because it's one that you tend not to point out to people, but what is actually a really advantage is the ITU translates this into 7 other languages. So you get real worldwide support that way. And that can be somewhat of a pain at times. So we have to sort of look at it, as I'm the liaison, I'll get stuck with looking at this and saying, no, this part, those are just letters that you don't need to translate them. You're not translating from English to French. That stuff stays, that combination of letters happens to be an English word, but you leave the 99% of the standard alone. But all that sort of boilerplate and all the stuff on how to use it, the actual descriptive stuff, gets translated into other languages that the other people are then able to use it better. So it's I believe, a really big awareness and adoption. We're talking about, hey, we want more members, we want more people to go around. It gets you at least second order interest from the rest of the world that doesn't speak English.
That's a huge advantage, and there are others I know. So I could have gotten married and had 3 kids and gotten divorced in the amount of time that's transpired since I first thought that STIX 2.1 was done. And back when it became a full OASIS standard last year, I think, at least speaking for myself, there was a little bit of a shock. Really? Finally? I mean, surely there's going to be some kind of final act, drama. There's going to be something, right? I was wondering, I was afraid that maybe the extension mechanism was broken. And I've worked a lot with language professionals and know how much, I can only imagine what it's like translating STIX and taxi standards. That's pretty specialized. That's a lot of work. But now that we're here, and maybe we should have done it 6 months ago, I don't think we should have done it on day 0. I think it was wise to hold off a little bit, and we should have moved earlier, but by God, we should move now. And thank you for raising this issue, Duncan. Thank you so much.
No problem. Obviously, it's a pet of mine. So,
All right. With that, like I said, it all starts with a motion.
Well, if I may, since I think at least some people perceived that I was a little bit rude or brusque towards you on the last TC call, Duncan. First of all, I would like to apologize if I came across that way.
No worries.
And second, in that spirit, may I motion that we, as a TC, do move the STIX and taxi OASIS standards forward to the ITU, guided by our able and willing OASIS liaison, Duncan Sparrow. Can I get a second?
I
Seconded.
Oh, I think I get slipped in first. Can I be this?
Oh, and there's Jane again. Jane, it's so good to have you on the call. I didn't see you there. I would have called you out. So I think then, does anyone object, or do we need to have a positive show of hands with the count?
Yeah, I would say let's go ahead and everyone just go do a quick raise of hand in the chat if you are in favor of this motion to go ahead and present STIX and taxi as to the ITU to become ITU standards through the cross-standardization process. And Kelly, as you're recording this, my vote is for in favor because I can't seem to find out how to raise my hand when I'm actually presenting. And
but I see your. Oh no, that's.
Oh, you want it that way. You want the.
Yeah, if everyone can keep their hands raised, I'm just going to take a couple screenshots of the chat and of the participants list so I can include a count in the notes when we're done. So just leave them up for a minute, please. Okay, I got it. Thank you.
You got a few those from the chat there.
Yeah, because you said chat, but then you said raise hand, which is actually a different feature. So I did both.
Yeah, I'll get them in both. So whatever you did, I will. And if you did both, I'll see that too. So
it doesn't count twice.
Will not count twice. Will not.
okay, so everybody now put down your hands. I think I know where the direction of this is, but if there is anybody who is not in favor of this motion, please raise your hand.
Kelly, what's wrong? You object?
Oh no, sorry, I'm still counting votes.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Okay.
Any objections? Going once, going twice. Sold to the man in the ITU hat. Please make it so, sir.
So for the morning session of this call, we show that the motion passes pretty handily. I am not even going to go ahead and attempt to do the math right now to make sure that we have quorum here, but we will repeat this motion again tonight at the 9 p.m. Edition of this to go ahead and get full TC representation. And then based off of that, as we publish out the notes, we will ask, we will start the process with Chet and OASIS and be able to go ahead and start putting a package together to go ahead and submit this. So Duncan, again, not to put words in your mouth, but given your experience here, we would love for you to help. And then I think from a TC perspective, Marlon, would you have some cycles to go ahead and help Duncan with any of the wordsmithing necessary?
Yeah, I think Duncan provided the document that we already had, so I'll be happy to work with them on that.
Okay.
Yeah, hopefully it's at a point, basically just Chet will take it from here, but we'll see.
Perfect.
I apologize, but I will not be on the 9 o'clock call tonight. I actually have to pick my wife up at the airport. So
I think Rob can do an able defense of why we should do this, and that coupled with the fact that the morning call was almost, I think, unanimously in favor, should probably push him over the edge. This is going to be a bit of work. If you need help, reach out to the community and raise an alarm. Thank you, Duncan, for taking lead on this, and Marlon.
Yeah, so excellent. So that I think was really what I wanted to accomplish today, and rectify, the fact that we hadn't gotten to this point. So I do think this is a big milestone for us. And as I alluded to earlier in the call, says next month we'll do a follow-up on some of the futures stuff. I do apologize. My day job has been kind of crazy this month. It's not like there's like this whole cyber thing going on in Ukraine or something like that. But but that is an excuse and not a and not a reason for anything else.
You
Are
mean
there,
you mean it's an explanation and not an excuse?
what you, yeah, I also haven't had enough coffee either.
Yeah.
But anyway, with that, are there any other questions, comments from the membership? Anything else that we would want to go ahead and address today?
If there are, just raise your hand or post it in the chat.
Okay.
Well, hearing none, I move that we adjourn and give everybody a 31 minutes back.
Yeah, I second that. And I am happy to go ahead and, you know, give that time back to folks, because I know we all have busy day jobs as well. This is extracurricular for many of us.
Can I ask a favor? I know we've been asking for a co-secretary and stuff for a while, but just this once, just today, for Kelly, could somebody possibly, if you got time to join the late call, you've already joined this one, you know what's been said. Could somebody just once help Kelly out with the secretarial stuff for the evening call? That would just be swell. You're not signing up forever, just one time. Reach out directly, you know, to DM to Kelly, but you'll get a gold star if you do.
Maybe even two.
Yeah. Thank you all.
All right.
See you next month or in a few hours.
All right. Thank you all. Bye-bye.